Now, we all want to know how to make currency in PoE. And recently I've been doing a bit of a strategy and it's been working. There is me getting a mirror of Kalandra. Now, I'm not sitting here saying you're going to get a mirror. Absolutely not. But the strategy and the ideas that I've been doing have been working really, really well this league. And you can see it was very, very late at night last night. You can see me zoomed in because I was kind of in disbelief. I was looking if my stream was on. I was like, is it recording? Did I just actually drop a mirror? And yeah, it was pretty exciting to have a mirror. That's the first mirror I've really found solo, and it was a fantastic feeling. Now, how has that been achieved? Now, it's been achieved through kind of, I suppose, getting back into the game a little bit more, getting into the scarabs. And I did want to chat to you about this build because I rolled this build specifically for Abyss because it gives you the caster mastery that opens chests. And so I got rid of my smite build. I sold it all off. There's a few things left to sell, like my frenzy ring that doesn't seem to want to sell and my shield and whatnot. But I sold off most of what I could and I made this build. Now, I've been able to generate a lot of currency this league, more so than I have in the past. Now, number one, the first thing to know, I'm not naive. When I started this league, I was ill. I was really, really ill. And I could barely breathe, bro. I was struggling. And I smashed PoE for a month. The number one thing, obviously, is time. Time really does help because time gives you currency. And then you can, if you have a bit of excess currency, you can negate the bad RNG. You can have 10 or so maps where you don't really drop stuff and you've not gone broke. But with this strategy, it's been consistently making money, and it's not some innovative strategy. It's just the Abyss hordes with the Abyss tree and whatnot, which I'll explain. But the biggest thing that I've focused on this league, where I think I've been able to generate a lot of currency, is I've actually rolled my maps properly. Normally, I just wouldn't. I'd roll my maps to be like, that looks okay, I can run that. Sometimes if I was juicing, I might go, yeah, all right, I am doing Abyss, so I'll chuck a few scarabs in. Or, yeah, that map like could be a bit better. I'll use a few chaos and re-roll it. I've never really done the regex. The regex for me has always been, let me just look if it's got no leech or no regen, and I'll filter them out. But now, I came across this video. I don't take any credit. I came across this video by Path of Chigger, if that's correct. And he was basically explaining the regex. And what he was saying was that there's been extra space allowed in the text box of PoE. So normally you'd have a very short regex like this. Now we can have a long one. So when I paste this in PoE, it works. And you can see they're all highlighted because these are all maps that I want to run. Now, the maps that I've been running, I was doing June strong boxes, and I basically made like 400 divines and made a really nice build. I then sold my build, did some more June strong boxes, made a mage blood, made a ton of currency, genuinely in 50 odd maps, in short maps. I'm not sat here doing thousands of maps. Now 50 maps does still take time. You've still got to sit down, but it's not an unfathomable amount. You know, 50 maps you can get through, and maybe it takes you a week. Maybe you're really speedy, you do it in a day, right? However much time, obviously that matters, but you know, you can sit and do these maps and consistently make currency. Now, obviously, variants, some maps might not make currency, some might, and if you've got a bit of spare bankroll, so to speak, then you can get rid of the difference, can't you? And that's nice. But the maps here all have 140 currency at least, or they have 35 pack size as well. You can see they all have at least 35 pack size with 140 currency. And if they don't, or they do, they can have extra mods, such as the Shaper mod. And you'll see that on these 50 maps that I rolled, I spent 2,100 chaos. Now, I would never have thought that that could be worth 2,000 chaos orbs. I got these 50 maps in a tab, and I pressed chaos on them 2,000 times until these 50 maps appeared. Now, I'm not saying you need to go to that length. Okay, my regex is pretty tight, and would I be better probably spending 1,000 less chaos and running 50 other maps? Yeah, probably. But I just wanted, because I had excess currency and I was kind of done with the league, and I was like, okay, let's run some really juice maps and see where we get. This is where we got. And by the way, this is not as juicy as you can get. You can exalt these, and sometimes I do exalt them, but then they might brick and I feel a bit bad about it because then I have to re-roll it and whatnot. But I'm putting these maps in, and the strategy I'm doing is the Abyss with the Hordes, and I'm putting on 3 risk. Now, obviously, the bonus of this is once you have currency, you have a good build, you can then farm more currency. And I know it's a bit of a backwards way of thinking, because if my build is complete like so, and it can kill Ubers and it can kill maps, what do I need the currency for? Well, you can just go ahead and farm for that luxury item. Maybe you want to get a corrupted mage blood. Maybe you want to get a storm shroud with corrupting blood on, or maybe you want to get a really, really sick ring, right? Obviously, this game, the fantasy is juice up your characters as best you can, you know, so yes, it is a bit backwards because you're farming even though you don't really need the currency. But, you know, I'm not... Anyway, the point is, let's get into the regex. So the regex has been really, really important because I've never really messed with it. Now, when you go on, you type in PoE regex, right? You can look at things like this, and you can go into your notepad and let's press reset so there's nothing here. You can say to yourself, I want 140 quality of currency, okay? Right? And I want a pack size of at least 35. And you can see here, this is this line here, 140 currency or pack size. So the first 2 things on your regex, right, is I would say like this. The first 2 things are 2 things that you definitely want. So the first thing to look at is like, what mods can't you run? So I've gone ahead and I've said, you know, I think I actually was a bit too strict on mine. I said I didn't want minus max because I was leveling and stuff like that. Well, it's not the end of the world, but let's just say, for example, right, you go ahead and, you know, let's just say you don't want your reflect, right? I don't want reflect because I can't do reflect fizz. I don't want leech because I can't be leeched, and I don't want, I don't know, drowning orbs is really annoying, so I don't want drowning orbs. This first thing here is the first part of your regex, right? So you will go here and you'll say, right, that's the first part of my regex. Then you will say, let's reset that. Then you'll say, right, what am I looking for? Am I trying to farm scarabs? Am I trying to farm divination cards? For me, I wanted currency, because yes, I can be a scarab farmer and just ship and sell scarabs, but I'm playing for dopamine, aren't I? And so I'm hoping for currency. I'm hoping that I get enough chaos and divine orbs to just kind of sustain me, and maybe I get the RNG mirror, which luckily happened. Now, I'm saying I want at least 140 currency, and that's that. So you can see here that that's kind of similar to what his is, and you can see it's ending with a quote. So that's kind of like the first step. We'll put it on one line so you can see, like, okay, those are the 2 things. I don't want these. Those are the rubbish mods, and I want this. Then you can make another quote, and you can say, these are some other things that I want. So what we're saying is, I want 35 pack size, right? Let's reset that. Sorry, I want 35 pack size. Okay. We put that in and we say, okay, I want, like he's saying, I want, quote, 35 pack size, right? Then instead of ending it with quotes here after this speech mark, we have this line, which, my Chinese keyboard doesn't have, but we put the line, and that's saying or. So what we're saying here is, okay, I want 35 pack size, or I want, you know, 190, you know, I want 190 quant. So, okay, there's a little bit less pack size, but, or I want this, or I want the shaper mod with these two things. Now, what this guy did, which was really clever, is he went into the mods of all the tier 17 exclusive modifiers and he looked at what gives quantity, right? So what gives kind of, you know, good, should we say, like, where is it? Trying to find out. He basically looked at what gives quant, good amount of quant, etc. Like what are some things he actually wants, you know, on, how do I word it, like on his maps. And I've just trusted him here and I've copied this last section, and he's basically saying I want the better rares, or I want the shaper, or I want the quant. And you can hear him in his own words. I'll let him explain.
But a lot of them give 70% currency. So
a lot of them are giving 70% more currency. Yeah. So when he's looking up this, if we go to 70%, 70% more currency, right? He's saying, oh, there's some mods here that give 70% more currency. I want some of them because I'm trying to farm currency. So block attack, I didn't used to be able to do that on my other build, you know, blood sores, these kind of things, meteors. And so with my tanky build, I can run a little bit more. And that's what he's basically saying. He's basically saying, hey, I want this really juiced map. And you can go and work out a regex that works for your build. As a result, I've started this strategy and I genuinely had 72-ish divines in my tab. And we reached a point where I'd spent 2,000 chaos orbs rolling the maps. I'd bought these maps, I think it was 20 divines. I had a bit of extra currency. I really just was doing this for my own enjoyment, not trying to make money. So I spent more on the maps than really I should have done, just for ease. And then I bought some scarabs, chiseled them up and rolled them, yeah. And we ended up, you can see here, 35. We'd ended up down to like 0 chaos, 35 divines. Now we've only ran, I think 10 or so maps, and we're back up to 53 divines. I'm genuinely getting 2 to 3 divines every single map, or 2 to 3 tinks. When I go to my fragment tab, I still have scar. This is all from just the 10-ish maps that I've done. We've got some worth divines that we need to sell all them, but I'm genuinely getting 2 to 3 divines a map, or 2 to 3 tinks. I've had enlightens, all sorts going on, and yeah, it's a very, very small sample size, but I did this on June's boxes as well and it worked really well. And so obviously as you get a tankier build and you can start to do currency, I think the thing that I've really noticed is, rather than say, yeah, that map's pretty juicy, I'll run 2 of them, for me it feels like there's kind of a break point. I could just be making it up, but it's almost like, yeah, you could run 2 half juicy maps, but that doesn't really equate to running 1 really juicy map. It's like once you reach a certain threshold on your map and it's got scarabs and it's got the atlas and it's got the risks and it's like the game just goes, this is fucking ridiculous, give him loot. That's what it feels like. So sometimes it's not the case of, yeah, I could spend 100 chaos rolling this map, but maybe I'll spend 20 chaos and run 5 maps, because there might not be a divine drop in those 5 maps. Whereas I used to think, I'm not spending a lot of chaos re-rolling my maps. Maybe I'd spend a bit, but the idea of spending 2,000 chaos on 50 maps to re-roll them is bewildering to me. Even when I was doing it, I was like, this doesn't seem right. I was like, this is not going to work. That's a nice sale. It's a fractured cluster jewel. So, you know, it just gets to a point where I feel like there's a bit of a oh, he's left, never mind. There's a bit of a break point, and unless you get over that, it's almost like, yeah, I'm not saying there's no loot, but I used to be of the opinion of, yeah, I'll put some scarabs on, I'll run a kind of juicy map, and I'll run a few of them, as opposed to really sit and focus on this one map. But you kind of get out what you put in. Not always. I'm not going to say you're going to get a mirror or you're going to be showered in divines, but genuinely, like, the loot that's coming out of these maps is pretty crazy. Like I said, I'm consistently getting I'm getting at least 3 tinks a map, which is really weird to play. I'm like, it's really weird to play because you think to yourself, that's not normal, man. Like, a divine to me is like, oh shit, a divine dropped. You know, now I'm like, the map's worth a divine orb. Like, basically, to me, the map's worth 1 divine. Because I spent 50, you can see there, I spent 55 divines on 50 maps. So the map is worth a divine. So now I get the first tink in the map and I'm like, all right, the map's paid for. Everything else is now profit. And it's a weird feeling to run maps that cost 1 divine that just look really basic, but it seems to work. I mean, I can bore you with the build. I made the generic caster gloves. They could have better multi, they could have better faster casting. At the time I was running out of money. This chest piece was 50 div. I needed the cold res. And it already had the max lightning res, which I really couldn't be asked to do. Power, charge, Ralakesh, Malachi's loop, void battery, +1 Ralakesh impatience, so I don't have to buy a level 4 enlighten. Avoid shock, resistance, crit chance, reduce curses. And like the tree is from Manny and it's got like explode. It's got 2 explode mods, so I don't have to take profane bloom, and it has block. And basically I'm running around with 75 spell block, 50 attack damage block, and I think that goes up, and a bit of devotion here. I could get a much better militant faith. I might do that now. It's really tight on resistances. I bought this for like 10 divine, this like energy shield on hit Watcher's Eye, and yeah, basically it's like a melding build and it has 90 all res, and the guy's build I'm following is Manny's, so I'm not going to bore you to death with it unless you want me to do another video on it, but it's been really good because it lets me automate opening the chests, and it's a bit tankier than the smite build. Not as fast, maybe not as fun, but it's kind of more chill. And with me kind of like been done with the league, I just wanted to chill out. Dropping a mirror, now I'm thinking maybe I can get a better wand or something. I don't know. We'll have to see what I'm doing, but I just thought, yeah, I'd just talk about the regex because I'd never do that shit, and it seems pretty damn good. So have a mess around with it, see what you can figure out, and don't be scared to spend a lot on your maps, because if you keep doing them, like I've done probably 100 of these dunes. All right, I was getting divines, not the big one. The big one happened. Now, I'm not saying it's always going to happen, of course. A mirror, I've played since the game was on Steam. That's my first mirror. But, you know, I'm just saying it seems to work for me, and I thought I'd share it because, you know, I like people to have fun on the game. So, yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure hordes are absolutely fucking broken. Let's be real.